Unlike most other states, relatively little of Alaska's 365,481,000 acres have been surveyed. Under the Statehood Act of 1959, the state of Alaska is entitled to 104 million acres of land. 53 million acres have been surveyed on the ground or by protraction methods. Title to this land has been or will be transferred to the state. The remaining 51 million acres must still be surveyed. Still unsurveyed are approximately 40 million acres to which Alaska natives are entitled under the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, along with nearly 80 million acres of proposed federal land withdrawals for national parks, forests, primitive areas, and scenic and wild rivers. While these acreages may change somewhat, this gives you an idea of the magnitude of the need for cadastral surveys in Alaska. Conventional, on-the-ground survey methods would take centuries of surveys. But the helicopter's mobility, teamed with advances in electronic distance measuring equipment and computers, made possible an advanced method of surveying. Although few ground surveys have been made in Alaska, the U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey has set some permanent triangulation stations. The precise location of these stations is known. The triangulation stations are few, but they are used as control points to set up other control stations. Computers were used to make a set of protraction diagrams which cover the entire states. Since the protraction diagrams show the theoretical position of any corner in the rectangular system, and the position of triangulation stations is also known, a computer can be used to determine the azimuth to any corner which must be set and the distance from the triangulation station to that corner. During the winter, cadastral surveyors do much of this preliminary work, so they have pre-computed points at which monuments should be set. The pre-computed points are not related to topography, so the surveyors determine which pre-computed points would fall on glaciers, in rivers, or in areas too unstable to hold a monument firmly. Instead of setting monuments at these points, surveyors will set witness corners in nearby stable areas. A flashing mirror provides a backside for extending the control net throughout the project area. For areas having no control, an electronic satellite tracking device called a geoceiver is used. The geoceiver works on the principle governed by the natural phenomenon called Doppler effect. When recorded information from the geoceiver is fed into a computer, the exact location of the instrument is determined. From these high-order control points, new surveys can be established. The survey crew set up their electronic distance measuring equipment over the control point. 3 additional crews with the same type of equipment will be transported to other control points. In a short time, all control points are manned and ready to work. Helicopters are a vital part of the system. They transport men and equipment to their control stations. While one helicopter is used mainly for support, it can be fitted with equipment from the primary helicopter if necessary. Now that electronic distance measuring equipment is set up on control points whose locations are exactly known, let's take a look at how the Airborne survey system works. There are 4 control stations and a hovering helicopter. Let's call the control stations A1, A2, B1, and B2. Inside the helicopter's cockpit is a piece of electronic equipment called an interrogator. It sends simultaneous radio signals to measure the distance from itself to any 2 of the 4 mountaintop control stations. By matching the pre-computed distances from control points and actual distances from control points to the interrogator in the helicopter, the precise location of the monument to be set can be found. Responders at the control stations receive and retransmit the radio signal to the helicopter. On an imaginary protracted grid, the location of control points is known precisely, and the slope distance from control points to pre-computed points where corners will be set is determined as closely as possible. For the corner illustrated here, there's a precise slope distance to it from each of the 4 control points. When the helicopter maneuvers to a position directly over this point, it will drop a monument on the pre-computed point. Radio signals retransmitted from responders to the helicopter give the exact distance from the stations to the helicopter. These distances are shown as a changing pair of numbers on the interrogator in the helicopter cockpit, 1 number for each of the 2 distance ranges. These numbers will change as the helicopter moves because its movement will put it closer or farther away from the 2 control stations. As the helicopter moves, distances change from its interrogator to the responders. Since the distances to the corner to be monumented were pre-computed, the distance figures displayed will change accordingly as the helicopter approaches the pre-computed distance. Once the displayed distances are in agreement with the pre-computed distances, the helicopter pilot has reached the optimum point for dropping the monument. The pilot then double-checks the displayed and the pre-computed distances to be sure they're the same. He also checks his position with respect to any pair of control stations, such as the A1 and B2 pair, the A2 and B1 pair, or the A2 and B2 pair. If all figures are in agreement, the pilot knows the helicopter is in the correct position and the monument is dropped. After the monument has been dropped, the pilot notifies the ground crew. The red cloth on top of the drop monument is used as a reference point by the helicopter pilot, who must check the exact position of the monument on the ground. He looks into a hover sight, a prismatic device which functions as an optical plumb bob to see the monument directly beneath the helicopter. The pilot then hovers over the drop monument and records the position of the drop monument with respect to various pairs of control stations. New distance figures recorded will give data to locate the precise position of the top of the monument. The helicopter crew's last duty is to drop some red plastic ribbon to help the corner setting crew find this dropped monument. The field office will use data recorded during the helicopter's hover to compare the difference between the drop location and the pre-computed position. The pre-computed position data on this paper tape is compared with magnetic tape or paper printout data recorded after the monument was dropped. On days when weather or wind makes precision hovering impossible, crews go out to permanently set monuments already dropped. For this part of the operation, the helicopter is used solely for transportation. They spot the red ribbon left when the monument was dropped, and the helicopter lands nearby to leave the surveyors and their gear. The survey crew has directions showing how far the monument should be moved and equipment necessary for permanently setting the monument. After determining the moves necessary to locate the monument, the surveyors dig a hole deep enough to set the iron post monument. The marked monument is placed firmly in its pre-computed position, and the hole is filled. The monument is marked with information that tells the exact location of the monument and the year it was set. To make the monument more visible from the air, they wire a red fiberglass cone over the monument. Accessories are taken, such as building a mound of stone, marking bearing trees if any are present, or digging pits as an aid to relocate the monument's position in coming years. Their job is done for this single monument, but thousands of monuments remain to be placed throughout Alaska. The Airborne survey system used for cadastral surveying in Alaska is controlled from a helicopter, and a survey crew can use it to finish in weeks work which would otherwise take decades. The land near this marker may not be populated for decades or even hundreds of years, but the sturdy brass cap monument is set permanently. When needed sometime in the future, the information about its location will be there. Cadastral survey work today will be of great help to future generations of Americans.